Welcome back to the garage, the place where we are making your Bronco. It's a lot of noise. Someone's removing a tree, and that is the amazing background noise that's going on right now. So there they are, chopping some trees. Because I live in a very mature neighborhood, and so you gotta chop the trees down sometimes when you live in such a mature neighborhood. So loud. Welcome back to the garage, the place where we are making your Bronco, your dream Bronco. Hey, besides the noise, if this is your first time here, I would love to have you subscribe. I'm putting out how-to videos for the weekend mechanic and doing the Bronco entertainment for the Bronco community. Today, what we are installing is this. What is this? This is an adjustable track bar. I got this one at Tom's Bronco Parts. I'll put a link in the description below. But man, this thing is beefy. If you're putting a lift on your Bronco, then what happens a lot of times is your axle begins to shift to one side or the other. So what this does is it actually gets your axle back in alignment underneath your frame. So before you put one of these on, you want to measure and see where your axle is under your frame and then begin to compensate for that. Let's look real quick and tell if your axle is actually in alignment with your frame. One of the important things you want to make sure that you do while you're doing this is have your tire pressure even across the two front tires, just to minimize, bulges and stuff like that. So there are a lot of different ways to measure how far out your tire is actually sticking from the fender or from your frame. Now, one of the main methods that people talk about is putting some kind of straight edge up against like the middle of your tire, making sure that it is bubble, and then measuring from your fender and getting that measurement. So there I'm at like 4 1/8. I get 2 1/2. So I'm not like super confident that just measuring from the fender is the best way to tell how far out your, how far off your axle is from your frame. And even this way, I'm like, this way, it probably isn't the best either, but I'm gonna show you what I did. So I grabbed a 2x4, I got it somewhat level, and I made a mark on where the center of my tires were. And then I measured down from my frame and made a mark on the wood from my frame. And what I'm finding is on this side, I'm at about 20 1/8. And then over here, I'm at 19. So there again, I have 1 1/8 difference. When I measured from the fender, I had 1 3/8 difference. So, I'm about like, this side is further out by at least 1 inch, 1 1/8, but maybe even 1 3/8. Maybe we just split it and go with 1 1/4 inches. Destroying trees. If I have, I don't know what the degree is, but let's just say a 1/4 inch of toe in, then most likely that's where, there's a variance between this measurement and measuring from the fenders. But I'm just gonna go with like 1 1/4 inches, and that'll kind of kind of play it in the middle, which means I need to shift my axle towards the passenger side 3/4 of an inch. So I'm gonna pull my old track bar off, shift the axle, and then put my new track bar back on. All right, so let's get to it. When you are trying to remove the bolt that's at the top of the track bar, don't pound it out and crush the bolt and destroy the thread so the nut won't go back on the bolt. Rule number one of like working on any of your suspension parts, don't hit your threads with a hammer. Because if you watch my very first video, when I destroyed the threads on my tie rod, then you learn from my mistakes. But now I have an adjustable tie rod, which is glorious. I love it. But I'm laying under here knocking this track bar out, and you know, you just have that like feeling of like, good Lord, what if something just collapses on my chest and like pins me in here and no one's home to save me. You guys will get it'll be great YouTube memorial to Nashville early Bronco as he passed away from stupidity under his Bronco. A lot of guys will weld back on the other side, weld this down so it doesn't move, and I don't think that's a bad idea, so probably gonna do that right now. So just make sure when you're doing this that you aren't just cranking down on the wheel, but you're just turning it a little bit to get the axle to suck over, and I think that will do it. And what you're actually seeing is you're not seeing the axle or the tires move, you're actually seeing the frame moving above the axle, so it's pretty crazy to watch. All right, so I've got it where I think I want it, and what I'm gonna do is just the same method that I did before and just measure from the fender and see where I'm at. So I'm at 3 3/4, and before I was at 4 1/8. 3 inches over here and 3 3/4 over there, so I still probably have, I'll move it another 1/4 of an inch, see how that looks. 3 1/4, it's 3 1/2 over here. Before I keep moving it, I'm gonna look at the other way that I was kind of messing with the, angle in here in case my fenders are messed up. I'm gonna measure it from up there before I go any further. Now, without doing any official reading already, like just the center of the tire from where I measured before, I am, just over 3/4 of an inch. That one's coming in now at 19 5/8. And over here, we're at 19 5/8. Now, what that means is my tires are centered under the frame. So now what we gotta do is measure this and get the track bar in the right position so that it can actually hold it in this position. All right, so got that welded on there, and now that is not moving this bolt, the center of this bolt, up to the center of this hole right here. And this is just gonna give you the measurement of how long your track bar needs to be. First thing to do is actually put the bushings in. I like to keep my bushings in the freezer for safekeeping because it makes them go in so easily. when they're nice and cold. All right, so big end goes on the axle, little end goes on the frame. The angle on this goes like it angles in towards the center of the frame. You're gonna go throw it on the truck, and you don't have to get your measurement perfect, but you just want to get it close so that when you're like installing it, you don't have to try to install it 7 or 8 times. I am probably a turn too short. 1 turn. So that's actually all pretty even, and so I'm going to tighten it back down and then go and take it to an alignment shop. Also, don't forget this bad boy goes on the lower track bar bolt, big old washer on there. Thanks for watching. You guys have a fantastic rest of your day.